Chris Hagedorn, Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. Mr. White, how did you get into the racket of getting people elected to public office?
Notice that word.
I noticed the word. I'm not sure I want to respond to the question in terms of the phraseology of the racket, but...
F. Clifton White established himself as an expert in the art of convention politics when he managed the draft Goldwater movement in 1964.
Not by promoting people, but by becoming a candidate myself, because someone suggested that I would make a good congressman, and I agreed with them. And
unfortunately, not enough of the electorate also agreed.
That's right.
Edward Goldsmith, Brooklyn College, Young Democrats. Both you gentlemen are professional campaigners during a campaign, and it seems that today more and more of a campaign seems to be going over towards the professional side. Can you say what you've seen over the years of how a campaign has become less and less the job of the candidate and how it's gone more over to the side of the professional?
Well, I would disagree that it's become less and less the job of the candidates. There is more and more use being made of professional campaign people. Major campaigns are being managed by people who are experts in various phases of the campaign. Now, one of the most critical phases is television. Now, when television started, a candidate would get on and he'd stare at the camera and he'd say, my name is John Smith and I'm a candidate for Congress and I want to talk to you tonight about taxes. Well, you know, that's radio with a light to read by. That is not the effective use of television.
We have a...
Cliff, you have some examples of the Goldwater spots.
Well, we did over 50 different types of television programs in '64, and we have one here, if you'll watch the monitor, which shows the transition between what Joe was just talking about, a candidate talking directly into the camera, versus the utilization of other material for that particular television spot. And let's look at one of these television spots now, which I think does show a transition type.
Graft. Swindles. Juvenile delinquency. Crime. Riots. Hear what Barry Goldwater has to say about our lack of moral leadership.
The leadership of this nation has a clear and immediate challenge to go to work effectively and go to work immediately to restore proper respect for law and order in this land, and not just prior to Election Day either. America's greatness is the greatness of her people. And let this generation then make a new mark for that greatness. Let this generation of Americans set a standard of responsibility that will inspire the world.
In your heart, you know he's right. Vote for Barry Goldwater.
That's a good spot. Now, regardless of the fact that Senator Goldwater lost in 1964, you saw the early part of that spot was a direct appeal to the emotions, and more votes are decided on the basis of emotion than on the basis of logic. Now, we may not like this.
Beg your pardon? So that's how the election was won? That's not the thing that League of Women Voters, I'm Mary Zimmerman, the League of Women Voters, we study issues and we know what we believe about them, and we're not stirred by
But you don't work for candidates.
Yeah, but we do work for issues.
But you don't work
and if
for
you
candidates,
all right,
and candidates are the people who are
You're not able to elect your
elected.
people because you're not concerned. You know the technicalities, but it can't be an either-or proposition. It's got to be a both and and thing, and if you don't face up the fact that our cities are falling apart, and you've got to get someone like Humphrey or Kennedy who have something specific about these, and that the world is falling apart because of the stupid mess in Vietnam, and that we won't start negotiating, we're so bullheaded about it, all the nations are against us practically, except Australia, the all-white nation, and a few others like that. If we don't get on the ball pretty soon, and have some candidates who are matching the issues, you're going to lose like you did with Goldwater last time.
How do you expect people to be able to vote intelligently on the issues when there's so much increasing emphasis now on these fancy, slick political television spots that you were just showing, and these spots oversimplify the issues, and it's really misleading.
Now, when we say that the new television spots are different than a man standing in front of the camera and speaking, which is the old use of television. This does not mean that there's any less issues material in a 1-minute spot that's interesting than there is in a 1-minute spot that's uninteresting. Let's show you now a spot in which the candidate does not even appear.
In the shadow of Boys Penrose, Pennsylvania's most famous political boss, the Democratic Policy Committee met February 14th to handpick their candidate for governor. Outside, the press. Inside, the party bosses, the men who already knew the answer. Party obedience. The list. The ins and the outs. The okay and the rejection. Behind closed doors, a handful of men handpick a candidate. Let's give the Democratic Party back to the people May 17th. Let your hand pick the man. Milton Chap.
Is there anyone here who disagrees with the philosophy of that television spot?
No, Mr. President, I don't think we disagree with this. I think the question is whether or not most of us could afford it. No, I think the basic question I think all of us are trying to get is you're trying to say that I think that most people are concerned with is that people cannot get elected to public office today unless they have enough money to hire people like you and Mr. White, which costs a pretty good bundle. And also that they cannot be elected unless they are presentable to the audience through this media. Now, it's been said that Thomas Jefferson stuttered and was the worst speaker in the world, and that if he ran against somebody sharp and slick, he wouldn't get in. And that is a result of your trade. Now, I think the question we've all been trying to ask you is that does your trade, does your political campaigning help this country to get the best men or the most slick men, the most presentable men, or as McLuhan says, the coolest men?
Well, I think that the techniques that we're discussing are just a means of communicating to the voter the qualities of the candidate. Now, I don't know of any campaign in which a candidate for President of the United States was defeated because of lack of funds. Can you tell me any?
No, but can you tell me,
wait a minute.
Can you tell me the number of people that weren't able to run for presidency because they didn't have enough money?
The problem here, the objection from a lot of people, is that these techniques, although legal, and you and Mr. Napolitan stress that you're playing according to the rules, and I don't think anyone's really questioning that. You're experts at your trade, which is playing according to your rules. But I think we, the amateurs, are objecting to your rules and your techniques, like that spot for Senator Goldwater, which was very professional and very good, but it preys upon emotions of, I'm afraid of crime in the streets, and here's the picture of the Capitol.
Well, you're really hitting upon a very important point here, which I wish you people would remember and consider. And this is really, in my judgment, tremendously important and fundamental. The political parties in the United States of America today are open organizations. You can belong to either one of the two major parties that you wish to belong to by the very simple act of indicating your desire to be either a Democrat or a Republican.
You're now making a political speech. According to what I have read on
I'm
these
not
things...
making a political speech. Let me tell you what I think is important here, sir. And you therefore have the right to go into either one of these parties and exert as much influence within either one of them as your own capacity, initiative, and ability allows you to do.
I think that the major question is that you guys are phonies and image makers, and that you're pandering to the advertising industry's techniques on this. I think that...
What techniques would you suggest?
Well, I think that if we had a little bit of the old Lincoln Douglas spirit, or even, if you please, Kennedy Nixon spirit.
What percentage of the vote did Lincoln get in the year he ran against Douglas?
What percentage did he get? He got less than 50% out of four candidates.
He got less than 40%, right?
Out of four candidates.
Yeah, okay. Now, in that election, he still got that. He went out, he campaigned, he got the votes, and he used the most modern techniques of his day, right? Debating. That was the big thing in that election.
What's wrong with the Kennedy-Nixon debate? That's still the most remembered political TV show ever shown.
Nothing's wrong with it.
All right, they were debating the issues.
They were using an advanced technique. Would you have suggested that Kennedy and Nixon debate in 1960 the way that Douglas and Lincoln did 100 years earlier without using television?
You could probably get yourself elected.
I'm not satisfied when the Soviet Union is turning out twice as many scientists and engineers as we are. I'm not satisfied when many of our teachers are inadequately paid, or when our children go to school part-time shifts. I think we should have an educational system second to none.
I believe in an America where religious intolerance will someday end, where all men and all churches are treated as equals, where no Catholic prelate would tell the president, should he be Catholic, how to act, and no Protestant minister would tell his parishioners for whom to vote, where no church or church school is granted any public funds or political preference.
Television also helped John Kennedy win the 1960 election through the Kennedy-Nixon debates. Not because they swung a large number of votes. In that election, a small shift was enough. But because they stirred enthusiasm among Democrats and they stopped the talk among Republicans about Kennedy not having what it takes to stand up to Khrushchev.
The question before us all, that faces all Republicans and all Democrats, is, can freedom in the next generation conquer, or are the communists going to be successful? That's the great issue. And if we meet our responsibilities, I think freedom will conquer. If we fail to move ahead, if we fail to develop sufficient military and economic and social strength here in this country, then I think that the tide could begin to run against us. That's the question before the American people, and only you can decide what you want this country to be, what you want to do with the future. I think we're ready to move, and it is to that great task, if we're successful, that we will address ourselves.
So you see, I'm not frightened by the impact of television and image making on presidential campaigns. If a candidate does not know how to reach the people through TV or otherwise, how to woo and win their hearts as well as their heads, he would never succeed in the White House anyway. For there, he's constantly required to mobilize public opinion. If, on the other hand, he is all style and no substance, all glitter and no grit, then no amount of professional image makers or managers or media can merchandise him to a majority of the voters. They are not going to elect any monkey president.